So, welcome to our third complex numbers video. We're going to talk about solving quadratic equations. Straight into example 1. Let's solve the following quadratic equation. Now, when we write x plus 5 bracket x minus 9 equal to 0, we know it means x plus 5 times x minus 9 equals 0. We have these two factors. X plus 5 is a factor, and we multiply by another factor. Remember, a factor times a factor equals a product. So the first factor is x plus 5 and the second factor is x minus 9. And the only way to make it equal to 0 is either the first factor a has to be 0 or the second factor b has to be 0. So we can say either x plus 5 is 0 or x minus 9 is 0. And from here we can find our two solutions. X must be either negative 5, which makes the first factor 0, or x has to be positive 9, which makes the second factor 0. Now, a lot of you confident you can go straight to the two solutions without all that process in the way. Let's look at example 2. Let's solve the following quadratic equation. X bracket x minus 6 will equal to 0. Well, again, we've got x multiplied by x minus 6 is equal to 0. So we have our two factors, our factor of x and our factor of x minus 6. So one or both has to be 0. So our first factor has to be 0, because 0 times something has to be 0. So x could be 0 is one solution. And the other possibility is x minus 6 is 0. So the two solutions we're looking for in this problem, x is 0 and x is positive 6. Now, be mindful, in this scenario, we've got one factor out the front, x, which could either be 0, and the other factor's inside brackets. The factor out the front could have a number out the front with it. So I could have 4x out the front. That doesn't change my thinking, because if I have 4x out the front, I still could make x 0, because 4 times 0 is 0, which multiplies by the other factor, which makes the whole thing 0. So the moment you see a number out the front with the x, it still is one of the solutions, means that x is equal to 0. All right, here's number 3. Let's solve the following quadratic. X minus 6 all squared equals 0. Now the squared you know means x minus 6 times x minus 6. So here are our two factors straight away, and we know our first factor could be 0 or the second factor could be 0. So our first solution could be positive 6 and our second solution could be positive 6 too. Now in this example, we have two solutions, but they happen to be the same solution. You should know by now that when we solve quadratic equations, there are always two solutions. But in this example, the two solutions are repeated, or the same solution. All right, let's move on to example 4. How do we solve these quadratics? Notice we've got our first factor, 2x plus 5, and our second factor, 3x minus 10, all equal to 0. All right, so we could say 2x plus 5 could be 0, or the other factor, 3x minus 10, could be 0. Now, when we solve this, this is how I like to do it. Here's the solution for our first factor, negative 5 over 2. And the way I think of it is, take my plus 5, pop it on the other side of the equals to make it a minus 5, and then divide everything by 2. So I get negative 5 over 2. My second solution is 10 over 3. And again, this is how I think of it. I take my negative 10, that's going to pop onto the other side of the equals to make a plus 10, and then I've got to divide it all by 3. So I end up with positive 10 over 3. So my two solutions are negative 5 over 2, or negative 5 halves, or 10 over 3. Right, well, our final example is just to quickly show you that not all quadratics appear in the way we've just talked about. Quite often they're not equal to 0, and you just need to rearrange them to get them equal to 0 first. So in this example, I would subtract 12x off both sides. I'd then need to factorize the quadratic into factored form, and then I'd work through the process of one factor equal to 0 or the other factor equal to 0 and work out my two solutions, which in this example are positive 9 or positive 3. Right, well that's us for the video, so thanks very much for watching.